Welcome to another review for All That Film. Today I'm joined with Hannah, and we're going to be talking Spider-Man Far From Home.
Yeah, I miss him too. I don't think Tony would have done what he did if he didn't know that you were going to be here after he was gone.
Hannah, what are overall thoughts you had about this movie, just to kick things off?
I really, really loved it. It's my favorite MCU movie and my favorite Spider-Man movie, and quite possibly maybe my favorite superhero movie of all time. That's a bold statement, but
It's a very bold statement.
I really, really dug this movie.
Was there something that stood out in particular to you that you would recommend, like someone who's not wanting to go? Because I heard a lot of people were like, "Oh, well, Endgame is the end," and obviously Marvel was pushing like, "No, this is the conclusion to Infinity Saga." But is there something that stands out that it's like, no, you have to see this because of this?
I don't think that it's gonna change anyone's opinion. If someone after Endgame they're like, yeah, I'm done, I don't want to watch any more MCU movies, I don't think that there's anything that I can say or anyone can say at that to persuade them to go see the movie, because it's really kind of an adventure far from Endgame. It's way different, and there's not as much to do with it, I think, as people would assume, as the trailers would have made people believe. But to me, at least, whenever I go into a movie, I always really want to connect with the movie, and that's kind of the most important thing for me. And with MCU movies, I've always enjoyed them, but I've never really connected with one. Captain Marvel is probably the one that, before this, I've connected with the most, but not even, and not the way that I felt with this movie.
Gotcha. That's really interesting. There's a lot of internal struggles that Spider-Man has that I think a lot of people can at least resonate with. Not in the feeling obviously not everyone's Spider-Man, but there's things that character goes through where it's like, oh, wow, this is powerful stuff. Even though I will say the people that complain about the way Marvel shoots things, that's sometimes here. That's one of my gripes with it. The editing's a little weird at the beginning, sort of in a good comedic way for a decent amount of it, but there is a couple scenes where the special effects aren't the best, and it's just the main scene at the beginning. I don't want to get into why, because technically a spoiler, I guess, but there's a reason why it doesn't look as good. But overall, I think this is a really incredible story that they decided to go from Endgame. I have problems with this, similar to Endgame, but the fundamental issues they don't choose to focus on in Spider-Man Far From Home. So it's easier to brush those things aside. And you get to a really fun conclusion that I don't know where this leaves us for the future, but it just had me guessing. And obviously there's some things going into it with the villain backstory and everything like that. But the way it presents that stuff is a fascinating way they chose to go with it.
Oh, yeah, for sure. I think that a lot of people, before going in, it's not that hard to, I guess, put pieces together before you go into the movie. But I think the way that they presented it was, it's a big shining moment of the movie, especially if you went in already kind of having assumptions as to what's going to happen and how the villain's going to present themselves. But the movie definitely chose a really great way of making it still be interesting, even if you already kind of knew yourself.
And one thing that I wanted to ask you about this, because you've seen it twice now, correct?
Yeah.
So is the Spider-Man score present in this? Because it just didn't I felt like the moments that were supposed to be hitting it weren't using that score to its advantage. That's not to say the score was bad. I just felt like that great theme that Spider-Man has wasn't utilized as much as it usually is.
I think Homecoming used it a lot more than Far From Home did. The moment that's sticking out to me the most is the end of the movie, the last 2 minutes is the one I remember it most clearly. I love the music in this movie. It's probably my favorite MCU score. I loved Mysterio's theme. The entire movie, every time they would play, I'd get so hyped.
I was surprised because he has a really fun theme that's recognizable, when it comes back on, and it's definitely one that you'll remember. I think the MCU has flipped the script on people, sort of saying they have a generic score that is just temp music. Give them a lot of credit for that. The writers Chris McKenna and Eric Summers have an interesting track record, especially with what they do with all these snappy scripts. I mean, you're looking at Lego Batman movie, Homecoming, Jumanji 2, and Ant-Man and the Wasp. And I think there's a lot of similar moments that are really well written here, especially comedically. I was very surprised that like they're still able to have those fun jokes that are surprising with how long like the series has gone on.
Did you notice that the jokes were kind of edgier this time around?
Yes, yeah. Especially since Spider-Man was pretty safe, like with its jokes. It's sort of like a reminiscent of like an 80s movie. And I really like that about it. I'm probably going to still say Homecoming's better. I think John Watts is figuring out Spider-Man, and I'm really excited for where he's going directorial-wise. Tom Holland, I made the claim today. I think in 10 years, we're going to be talking about this guy as one of the best actors ever.
Really?
I know a bunch of people. Yeah, no, I'm 100% serious. Like, he's going to take on Spider-Man, but I think all the projects he does along with that are going to be these interesting performances. And I legitimately think he has like the chops to do it, because Andrew Garfield did a similar thing where he was just playing Spider-Man. And then once he got done with that, he's done nothing but great acting. I don't know if you've seen Silence or a couple of those other films.
Oh, yeah, I have.
Yeah, he's been great
phenomenal.
As of late. Who would you say, without giving anything too far away, who would you say is the standout performer here?
Oh, Jake Gyllenhaal, 100%.
Yep, I agree with that wholeheartedly. He's terrific. You were mentioning who do you think it reminded you of?
Jim Carrey at his best.
Yeah, which is a great, like, people forget Jim Carrey, like at the height of his powers, was incredible. Like, this is a role made for 90s Jim Carrey.
Yes, exactly.
I did think, if we're talking about a couple gripes, I think where they went with certain characters, Spider-Man, Mysterio, obviously, like, I think they handled those characters brilliantly. But there's certain turns they do with minor characters that I was like, I don't know for sure about this. But me and Hannah, joined with George this weekend, are actually going to do a podcast on Spider-Man Far From Home. So definitely check that out, because we're going to like probably dive fairly soon into spoilers. Like, we're probably not going to talk about it non-spoilers that long, because again, like we were talking about it, there's a ton to talk about with this movie. Yeah. There were
almost
choices.
More than Endgame.
Yeah, I actually agree with that, because I think with Endgame, there's ideas like, you're like, okay, well, I sort of know like this beat is going to happen. It's sort of going to go like this. And like the conclusion, okay, anybody listening to a Far From Home review, if you don't want Endgame spoiled, I'm sorry, it's been out for a while. And why are you listening to Spider-Man Far From Home?
It's made $2 billion.
What do you do it? But the last bit, while great, is one of those things where it's like, yeah, that makes sense. It didn't necessarily surprise me. You can't really like spoiler what, like, someone's not going to be like, wait, they have a big action fight at the end? Like, Hannah, what score would you give Spider-Man Far From Home?
I gave it a 10 out of 10, and I think I'm pretty good with that score.
Because you've seen it twice, so
yes,
I think definitively that's a good way to revalidate your previous opinions. I'm really torn. I don't know where would you say you were on the first watch? Just curious.
Halfway through the movie, I kind of already knew that it's like one of my favorite movies of all time. It really resonated with me. And after I saw it for the first time, all the way through, I told my sister and everyone, I was like, this is like my favorite MCU movie, my favorite Spider-Man movie. I love it so much. And then before I went and seen it today again, I was like, I need to calm down. I was very high on it. Like, need to reevaluate what I just said and all the bold claims that I just made. And then I seen it again and I was like, no, I was right.
That's always the best, when like everyone's like, no, like you're hyping this up too much, and you see it again and you're like, no, you guys are wrong. Like, yeah. I think I'm going to stick with an 8.1 for now out of 10. On a second watch, this could go up very high, because I can't talk about different things, but it could definitely work to its favor in a second viewing. But that's our review. Thank you for listening. And make sure to check out our podcast. It posts every Monday, and you can find that on Spotify, Apple Podcast, and YouTube.